for joining us here on the Neutral Zone. I am Phil Milani, joined as always by my partner in crime, my esteemed colleague, my quarter zip companion. It's at Eric Dalala.
Wow, trying something new.
Snuck one in there.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what the Broncos need, off to a 1-4 start.
Zip up the quarter of the season.
Yeah,
Zip that quarter of the season.
Zipped up.
Zipped it up.
But maybe we need, my everything. It hasn't, it's of course a fan favorite. Everybody loves it. Nobody dislikes it. But it hasn't necessarily worked all that well.
Well, I don't pretend to think that how we start the show determines wins and losses.
Well, who knows?
I don't think that.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, at this point.
We'll try anything. Maybe.
Try anything. So maybe a new intro. See if it
I
works.
wouldn't count on it.
Maybe, well, hey, if the Broncos somehow go on the road and win in Kansas City, we know what did it now.
Sticking with it.
We know what did it.
It would be quarter zip companion.
I think so.
Yeah.
That would be what did it.
Of course.
So we'll just have to see.
15 games.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I figured it out. It took me a while, but I figured it out.
That would be wild.
That would be wild.
And only the truest of fans would know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody listens to NZ. The NZ.
But those are the truest.
Yeah. Of course, Eric, the Broncos fell to the New York Jets 31-21. The final score there. They are now 1-4 on the season, Eric. I don't think that anybody would have thought 1-4 was how this team would start.
No, I mean,
not in my wildest dreams that I think that.
And
they're pretty wild.
You've got some crazy dreams. You've told me about them. We can't talk about them on the air, but they're crazy.
It's a family program.
They're wild. That one.
No,
gosh, okay,
don't even.
I won't.
Don't,
okay.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, Phil, it's been a tough start, a disappointing start. I think a lot of things have gone contrary to how you would expect them to go. I mean, despite the defense's struggle to end last season, I think there was still an expectation that this would be a strong defense. And we talked about it, Phil, really coming into week one of the season, even if they had the ability to stay in the top half of the league, this Broncos team, I think, would be in pretty good shape. That hasn't happened, obviously, and that's been a surprise. The offense, Phil, I think we thought maybe they would get off to it would just take some time to have things click. They've actually been pretty good, yesterday in the second half notwithstanding, but there is some sort of disconnect here where this team, for the majority of the season, has played a really good half, whether in the first or second half, and then struggled in the other. And what you're left with is a 1-4 record, and you're staring down a trip to Kansas City, play Kansas City again in 2 weeks. It is you find yourself in a not so great situation, and for a team that had playoff aspirations, you've now just got to focus on getting better and finding a way to fix this thing, I think, rather than looking ahead to any sort of postseason hopes at this point.
Yeah, I would just focus on, hey, what are we doing to get better this week? Let's try to just play better. I think that the one thing that I've taken away here, Eric, is that this team is good enough to win these games, but they aren't good enough to overcome mistakes that start to just sort of pile up. When at the end of the game, you look back and you say, well, if it wasn't for these four things, that's a win. And that's happened a couple of times now here, Eric, and certainly the case yesterday. You're talking about 2 Marvin Mims fumbles. You're talking about a safety from Russell Wilson, and then also obviously the final strip sack there. If the Broncos just don't do those things, this is a good enough team to win these games. I mean, we've seen the offense really be able to be explosive at times. We've seen the defense as much as it struggled this season in that first half. Certainly to start the game, came out and played much, much better. I think that you saw, hey, Justin Simmons is back. Mike Purcell is back. Josie Jewell is back. Okay, things are better. But then all of a sudden they give up the 72-yard touchdown to Breece Hall, an explosive play there. You're like, well, if they just wouldn't have done that, this would have been a pretty good defensive performance, but overall, this team has the talent and the ability to play good football. But when you, at the end of the game, look back and you say, there's 3-4 plays here where if that wouldn't have happened, you could have done it. This team isn't like the Kansas City Chiefs in that sense, where the Chiefs can make these mistakes and somehow they find a way to win at the end. This team not quite able to do that.
Yeah, and learning, Sean Payton said it after the game, learning how to win is important, and so is learning how to not lose. And we've heard him say that several times now, and it's about rebounding from those sorts of plays or taking advantage of opportunities. The Broncos are having a really tough time in the second half, Phil, and then the Jets muff a punt. You get the ball at the Jets' 40-yard line, and you have a chance here to either take the lead or cut into the lead and make it a one-possession game or keep it within a one-possession game. And instead, I believe it was the second play from scrimmage there. You run that kind of a double reverse type deal. And Marvin Mims, whether it's on the pitch from Samaje Perine or Marvin Mims for not catching the ball, either way, you turn the ball over there and you give up a big opportunity to score. And I think you're right there that Sean Payton talked about the Kansas City Chiefs are a good football team, and they've won games when they probably shouldn't have won them or they're not playing their best football. And I think that is, as a Broncos fan, and you watch the Chiefs and you think, oh, hey, they're down 7 at halftime, or they're, last year they're down 17-0 to the Raiders. They're going to pick up a loss here, and they just find ways to get it done. The Broncos, of course, did that in Chicago, and really to their credit, despite playing poorly in the run game defensively, despite not playing well in the red zone offensively, they did have the fact that they even had a drive to go tie that game at the end was relatively
Oh my gosh,
surprising.
I thought they were going to win the game. After Pat's interception, I was like, that was a big mistake by Zach Wilson. I mean, you're looking to ice the clock there, ice the game. You're in field goal range there. You would have made it. So the Broncos had to score a touchdown with like a minute left. But instead, for some reason, he decides to test PS2 there, and the Broncos come away with the ball. I thought that was such a momentum-changing type of situation and the Broncos had just driven down the field, scored the touchdown and the two-point conversion with relative ease, Eric. And I just thought, oh, my gosh, I thought maybe they'd even go down and score a touchdown. That was sort of the impact of that switch. But, Russ, for all the excitement that comes with him scrambling around and making plays, that's a positive of that. The negative, of course, that comes with it is that sometimes, when you're running away, a ball gets knocked out or something like that. You got to live with those. If you take the plus, you got to live with the minus, I think, in that situation. And unfortunately, most times, 8 out of 10 times he's making something exciting happen there. This time, the ball gets knocked free. And, man, what a scoop by Bryce Hall. That ball just stuck to his hands and he took off. I thought it was going to roll out of bounds and maybe the Broncos would live for another day there. But, that was a tough swing of events there.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos certainly didn't get any bounces yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Zach Wilson strip sacked twice. One of them goes right back to him.
Yeah.
The other one goes right to an offensive lineman. Those were both plays where the Broncos could have gotten a touchdown on the first one, could have saved 3 points in the other one. There's the first muff punt that bounces right through Alex Singleton's legs and goes to a jet. So they certainly didn't have those bounces go their way. But, Phil, when I look at the game, we talk about making those plays in a close game and finding a way to win those games. That's one part of it, right? The other part of it, I think, in learning how to win football games and being a good football team is putting things out of reach when you get an opportunity to do that.
They did not do that.
They did not do that. In the first half yesterday, the Jets go 3 and out. You go down the field and score a touchdown. Sorry, that's not. First, they go 3 and out. You have a chance to put some space between you. Marvin Mims obviously loses, muffs the punt, and the defense actually makes a great stop to hold him to 3.
That was good.
The Broncos go down the field, score a touchdown, take the lead again, get another stop, and you're like, okay, hey, the Broncos are playing good football right now.
They've scored an opening drive touchdown in 4 of the 5 games this season.
The opening script has been really good.
Really good.
Which makes it almost harder to fathom why then coming out of halftime it's been
doesn't work.
Such a struggle. But so you're instead of then going up 10-3, or really it should have been 10-0, assuming that the fumble doesn't happen. Now you have a safety, and instead of 7-0 or 10-0 or 14-0, you're looking at 7-5. And you're thinking to yourself, man, the Broncos have really kind of dominated this first quarter, and yet it's a 2-point game. And then you go into the second quarter, and the Broncos have a pair of drives where they have a chance to score touchdowns.
First and goal from the 5 on one of them.
First and goal from the 5 after a great scramble by Russ on third down. And then first and goal from the 10 on another, including, I think that you face a second and goal from the 5 on that drive. Not able to score a touchdown on either of those possessions. And so now instead of having 21 points, or say you get a field goal on one of them and it's 10 more points, instead of being up 17-3 or 17-5 or 21-5, something like that, you get into
it's
a game.
It's just a 5-point game.
It's a 5-point game. And really, if it's not for a Jets mistake at the end of the first half, it's a
Closer.
2-point game.
Yeah.
And so that was an opportunity where, you know, I watched the Ravens-Steelers game yesterday as we're waiting for the Broncos game to start, and the Ravens just absolutely dominated the first half.
Yeah.
And yet they were only up
They
10-3 at halftime because they didn't take advantage of opportunities. And that was kind of where at halftime you worry. You know, the NFL, it plays out a certain way, right, Phil? When you don't take advantage of those things, it tends to come back to bite you. And I was worried about that at halftime.
Yes.
And then the Jets find themselves in that same scenario where they go 0 for 5 in the red zone and only kick field goals. And what happens to them is there's a chance that the Broncos have an opportunity to tie this football game. And so both teams didn't really.
The Jets did not play well yesterday.
No, neither team played particularly good
clean
football.
Yeah, nothing was clean about yesterday.
But if you take advantage of those red zone opportunities, which is where, you know, having a guy like Sean Payton you would think would help you the most in the red zone, and you're up 21-3, 21-5. Well, now in the second half,
different vibe.
Hey, you know, if you stop Breece Hall a couple of times, do they start going to the air?
Yeah.
Because let's not pretend like Zach Wilson went out there and just torched the Broncos.
No.
He made a couple of nice throws, but there was that first half drive. They ran the ball 9 consecutive times, and the Broncos defense allowed them down the field, finally put them in a 3rd and long, and Zach Wilson throws it out of the end zone.
Yeah.
When the Broncos forced Zach Wilson to throw the football yesterday, it went in their favor. The issue was they just could not, for much of the game, force them to throw the football.
Now, Zach Wilson did make a couple of throws, like before that PS2 interception. He made one to Tyler Conklin where Josie Jewell really came up and he took the bait, and then it got beat over the top there. So there were a couple of plays mixed in there, but yes.
But not many.
Agreed. There were times where you knew the run was coming, and the Broncos couldn't really do much about it at times there. Another game where they gave up more than 200 yards on the ground. And, you know, Sean Payton talked about that. He talked about gap integrity, Eric. It wasn't like they were missing a ton of tackles this time. It was just more of, hey, a couple of wide open holes, and boom, Breece Hall is off to the races. There was one time where Justin Simmons was trying to strip the ball, and there was a lot of extra yardage. Or maybe that was on the Conklin. That was the Conklin. Never mind.
Which at that point, I'm okay with.
Yeah,
that.
you're just trying to do something there.
You're trying to make a play.
I thought tackling was overall better. It's just the gap integrity continues to be a problem for this team.
Yeah, and when you're, you know, it'll be interesting to see what the Kansas City Chiefs do, because the Broncos, until they prove they can stop the run, are going to get tested there. And against the Chiefs, if you can't stop the run and you got to load the box, Patrick Mahomes is going to make you pay on the back end. So, you know, the Broncos' test against the Jets was stop the run, make Zach Wilson throw on third down, and if you do that, you'll be in good shape. I mean, we saw in the first half, Phil, he was holding the ball a long time, got strip sacked a couple times.
Another nice game.
You know, sacked, I think, 3 times in the first half.
Zach Allen.
And then I don't believe the Broncos got a sack in the second half, right? Or I guess they got one on the Elijah Garcia strip sack. But outside of that, the Broncos just did not put them in enough situations to
throw the ball.
And listen, as Sean Payton said on Monday, if we don't defend the run better, you
can't win games.
You're not going to win football games.
What do you think he said? It wasn't communication, it's technique, is what he said. What do you think about that? What is it? That starts in practice, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I would think so. You know, it starts with coaching, starts with guys doing the right thing. And, you know, you make a change along the defensive line, right, where Draymond Jones and Deshaun Williams leave, and you bring in Zach Allen. Jonathan Harris steps into a starting role. But for the most part, the personnel on the defensive side of the football is pretty similar to how it was a year ago. And obviously they struggled late in the year last year, but something, I don't know when it was toward the end of the year last year, something happened where this defense has not looked quite the same. And you just wonder, even yesterday, the first half, the first few drives looked great. And you're like, okay, this is what you kind of expect from the Broncos defense against this type of offense, the way that they had been struggling.
Yeah.
And then it kind of went away, and you wonder, what is – and to be fair to the defense, in the second half, Phil, they were put in a bad spot. The Broncos go 3 and out 3 consecutive times.
Yes, they were on the field a lot.
They're running the football, so you're on the field a lot. And they actually did a great job. They didn't give up a touchdown in the second half, right? They just gave up – after that, the Jets, take the lead there.
Field goals.
But after that, you hold them to field goals and essentially keep yourself in the game. You do get a stop. I mean, I wondered, just to be frank, when the Jets get the ball back with 5 minutes left, 4 something left, are the Broncos going to get the ball back here?
Oh, yeah.
And
they did.
To their credit, they made a play.
Yes, made a play.
The Broncos had plenty of time to go down and get a field goal.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Personally, for as poor as the run defense was yesterday, I don't look at that and say that's the reason this team lost. Offensively,
there were a lot of mistakes.
You have to find a way to score points and convert in the red zone, not turn the ball over. We talked about it, Phil. When this team wins a turnover battle, much like any team in the NFL, you're in a good place
you gotta play cleaner
to succeed. And yesterday they gave up too many, and then when the Jets lost the ball, you wish you could come up with 1 or 2 of those and swing the game. I mean,
but the explosives on the ground, those are really plays that just can't happen. I mean, like Sean said, you can't win games like that. And it's you don't see it happen too many times or just week after week where these huge explosive plays, pop up on the ground. Maybe you get beat over the top a couple of times in a season, but these ground plays are sort of puzzling. I think speed is a big factor, Eric. This isn't the fastest defense in the NFL, and I think if you, like Sean said, the gap integrity, like if guys just aren't quite where they're supposed to be. Opposing running backs are just so fast nowadays that a couple of open holes and boom, you're off to the races. And you saw that even on that play. I mean, Sean said that they got a little too wide there, and then K-Jack came up, maybe didn't take the best angle on that particular play, and boom, Breece Hall is just too fast. And so that's sort of just the NFL nowadays is speed is the name of the game. And some of these offenses are just, they're flying out there. And so if you give them the space and you're not making it tough to get through the line, if you get them in open space, you're going to get crib calls, as they say.
Ooh, they say that?
They say, they took it to the crib. They took it to the house.
So the Heisman's chilling?
Yeah. Back at the crib.
Yeah. Phil, this team still is, I think, learning how to respond to some of these moments of adversity, right? And again, they did it late. They scored a touchdown. They get a stop. They have a chance to go down and tie the football game. I agree with you. I thought they had a chance to win, but ultimately I think you have a negative play there before the strip sack, and so time runs off the clock, and you're down to 40 seconds. And at that point, you're thinking, okay, well, let's just get a field goal here.
Yeah.
But bigger picture, you want to see each side of the ball pick each other up, right, when they need it. And yesterday, toward the end of the game, the defense got a big stop and picked the offense up and gave them a chance. But in the second half, in the third quarter in particular, there are some moments there where the defense needed the offense to pick them up and needed them to
extend a drive, just make one play here or something. Yeah,
keep them off the field. Hey, the Jets, you go 3 and out. The Jets come out and get this big touchdown run and go ahead. Okay, offense, come out, move down the field, respond, score a touchdown, score some points, go back in front and kind of let the Jets know, hey, you might be fired up over this play, but we're going to respond here. We're going to, this is going to be a battle. And instead, the preceding 2 drives, and maybe I think 3 drives after that, the Broncos aren't able to do much. I believe they have negative yardage over their first 4 drives of the second half. I mean, that's where you'd like that offense to come out and hit a big play or move the ball down the field and impose their will a little bit and go down and score a touchdown. And now the Jets are like, man, we just went ahead and then we gave it right back up. That's a momentum killer for them.
Yeah.
And instead, if you're the defense, you're like, oh, we got to go right back on the field.
Yeah.
That was a tough moment, and unfortunately, the Broncos too many times this season. The Bears come to mind. Washington comes to mind. Miami was just.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, it was not competitive. But
that's
a couple other times this season, you've needed the offense to respond, and they've just gone cold for a little bit too long.
Yeah. You just need something to just sort of like calm the seas a little bit there and just kind of get back to zero a little. But the third quarter, I think they had minus 16 yards. They only ran 11 plays on offense. So, whatever. I know Sean on Monday said, like, look, one of his big notes was we got to put 4 quarters together here. And so that's certainly an issue. We can talk about the offense a little bit here now. We just talked a lot about the defense. But, Eric, I thought that the Jets' front seven made it very difficult for the Broncos to get the ball down the field in this game. I mean, the wide receivers did not have much of an impact until very late in the game.
Yeah, and, that's where Sean Payton talked about being patient with the run game. You saw the Broncos a few times run the ball on first down and then kind of pass after that, and that obviously didn't work out very well. We heard Robert Saleh talk about keeping Russ in the pocket, making him play quarterback a little bit more, because he did make good job in the first half of scrambling, making these off-schedule plays, beating them with his legs. I was impressed the way he did that, and for whatever reason, Phil,
7 carries for 49 yards for Russ.
Yeah, and I would assume most of that came in the first half.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the Washington game a little bit, though, where the Broncos' offensive line kind of handled a good front in the first half, and then you come back out after the break, and it's just not the same sort of it just wasn't the same. And Russell Wilson had to hold the ball. There were some plays where you're sitting there and you're like, okay, let's throw the football. But Sean Payton on Monday said, well, that was a coverage down the field, and that they didn't have guys open down the field. And so, that offense has to find a way to open things up in the passing game, and the way to do that, as Sean Payton explained, was you got to run the football, and it's got to be a more consistent approach. He's got to stay patient. It sounded like, based on how he talked after the game and on Monday, was that he had a decent amount of frustration with himself in terms of calling the football game, maybe some of those red zone plays, how he needs to be able to stick with the run a little bit more. And that's not, it's not to discount the Broncos passing game, which we've seen make plays, but you've got to be balanced. You've got to dictate to you talk about this a lot, Phil, is dictate to the defense what you want to do. And in the first half, we saw screens with Jaleel McLaughlin work. We saw him run the football well. We saw Samaje Perine have some success. Obviously, you're missing Javonte Williams, who was questionable for the game and did not go. But
he gave it a little go pregame, right? Yep. And they just said no. Okay, no.
Yeah, held him out. But that just didn't exist as much in the second half, and particularly, I see it two ways, right? Because when you go 3 and out and the Jets go and score that touchdown, you're now feeling like momentum is on the Jets' side.
You want to make a
play.
So
you want to make a play, but at the same time, it's a 2-point game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, at that point, I believe it was 15-13.
Yeah.
And so, this is still a football game, a very close football game. I think there you've got to, as Sean Payton said, stick with the run a little bit more. Stay patient. Don't feel like, you've got to be okay with getting some of these smaller gains and maybe shortening the game, grinding it down a little bit. You just kind of lost that element of it. And then when Russ has to drop back to pass every time and you're letting these guys tee off, now you're in some trouble. Yeah,
and I think one of the areas that Sean really excels at is when you can get into a rhythm. And when you go 3 and out, it's so hard to start doing things where you're like making the defense guess. Do you know what I mean? Like we saw in the first half with Russ getting out, making some of those unscheduled plays, the screens. I think that keeps the pass rush and that front seven sort of like uneasy a little bit. So some of the success there was making the Jets stay off. and hey, is this going to be a screenplay? We got to play that. We can't just be so aggressive. And then in the second half, for whatever reason, those things weren't working and the run game wasn't working. And so then you saw the Jets really just come alive on the defensive side. And when you go 3 and out, it's hard to start dialing up these plays where you really got the Jets off balance and you just get into no flow. It felt like there was no rhythm until that Troutman touchdown. And even on that drive, it took a big Jerry Jeudy play on 3rd down to convert there. And then you kind of got the wheels in motion a little bit. So, certainly missing Javonte Williams, I think, in that case. But Jaleel had done a nice job running the ball, a nice 1-2 punch with the speed from him and then the power from Samaje Perine. So, if you look at the numbers, Eric, the rushing stats aren't bad because they finished with 139 on the ground. So if you just look there, you're like, oh, that's not that bad. But the consistency of it and trying to just stay on the field and get into a rhythm, I think really hurt in the third quarter.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the Broncos tried some. There was certainly the one kind of trick play with the reverse, but then you have kind of you had the Jeudy one in the red zone where he's running wide. And
that's a good red zone defense, too. I mean, you got to give
they were the best in the NFL.
Credit. Yes.
They were best in the NFL coming into this game. But you've got to find ways to make plays there. And that hurts you. And, again, I asked Sean on Monday what makes a good red zone offense. And he said you got to be able to run the football down there. And you had a couple plays that went wide. And you just wonder, hey, maybe
go forward.
I don't know if
first and goal from the 5.
Can you just pound it in?
Yeah.
And you spent a lot of money in free agency on this offensive line.
Yeah.
Brought Perine in. You have Russ, and one of those. I think it was the first and goal from the 5. I think on 3rd down, they called the kind of the QB draw there. I really liked that call.
Yeah.
Actually. And Russ wasn't able to,
up a little there.
Didn't quite work, but I like that call. Russ is having a nice game
running
with his
the ball.
legs. Give him a chance to make a play.
Spread them wide and then just try to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, they're trying different things, trying to find a way to make it work. But, the 4 quarters element, it has been difficult where you got to find a way offensively to make plays at all times and make timely plays. And I struggle a little bit because at times you watch this football team and you're like, gosh, they're a lot better than they've been the last few years, especially offensively. Yeah. And then you watch them for other times and you're like, a lot of it isn't there yet. And then when you pair that with not having a defense that's at the level that it's been the last few years, those things combine to really hurt you.
Yeah, and that's why they're 1-4. Yeah. I mean, it just really feels like to me if they just played cleaner, whether it's penalties one week or it's the turnovers or it's the struggles in the second half. If it's just more of a clean sort of game, I feel like they would have won those things. But I don't think that you can go back and say. I mean, you have to say what they are. They're 1-4 now, and you can't say, hey. I think Russ after the game said, "Gosh, it really feels like we could be 4-1." But
well, he said, "Yeah, but woulda, coulda, shoulda doesn't
matter." Yeah, exactly. So you can't say those things in the NFL. A lot of these games end up like this. You know what I mean? And certainly, other than the Miami game, every game this season has come down to this point. And now three of those, the Broncos have been looking back and saying, "What could have gone right?" So. That's just life in the NFL. That you, in certain moments, if you're not executing or you're turning the ball over or you're making these mistakes, safety or whatever, you're not going to win these games. And I did think it was interesting. Sean on Monday said, after Russ was sacked 4 times in that game, he was just he was asked, what did you think about the pressure on Russ? And he was like, yeah, I thought maybe the tackle play could have been a little bit stronger. So,
I mean, nobody is above, when you start 1-4, nobody's above criticism or taking some of the blame. Mike McGlinchey talked after the game and said, I got to play better.
Yeah.
Garrett Bowles obviously whistled for a holding call.
Yep.
Everybody's got to play a little bit better. And listen, it's not going to be perfect, and I know people want them to go out and just dominate teams, and certainly that happens sometimes in the NFL, but it's rare. It's more, I think, Phil, they've got to find a way that when bad things happen, because bad things are going to happen. It's part of the game. You've got to find a way to overcome that, and unfortunately, more often than not in the last few years, the Broncos have not overcome that. They overcame it in Chicago a week ago, but that's been kind of the exception, not the rule. Now, I think back to a game, I can't remember which one it was against Detroit, but there's a game here where the Broncos were playing really well against the Lions, and the Lions kind of made a little bit of a run, and you're thinking, oh, is this going to be, like, are they going to lose this game? And then they just put it out of reach.
Yeah, but that was a DT game?
It was either that. I think the Lions played here back-to-back years, right?
Yeah.
I think it might have been the year before, but it was one of those two.
Yeah.
And, I mean, against the Commanders this year, you're up, 21-3?
Yeah.
They make a little push. Okay, we'll put it out of range here.
Yeah.
Or, hey, it's 7-5. Go put it out of range here. Yeah. Score a touchdown. Make Zach Wilson throw the ball and test him and get more pressure on him.
Yeah.
Make those plays that put it out of reach. That's the way to end some of these games. And then the other end, when momentum does go against you, have the belief and the confidence to go do something about it and change it.
Yeah. I thought they really were after that PS2 interception.
And again, that shows you the potential that, hey, the Broncos played about as poorly as they could have for a portion of this game. They had negative yardage in the third quarter. They've turned the ball over at that time twice and had a safety. They've given up more than 200 rushing yards. And at that point, you're still standing there with the ball thinking,
a chance, yeah.
Oh, gosh, we got a chance to win.
Yeah.
And that shows you the potential of this team.
Yeah.
But it just hasn't resulted in wins, which is tough. And at some point these one-score games will probably flip and go the other way. There is some randomness involved, but you've also got to go make the play. And that's what Sean Payton talked about on Sunday, was that he was asked how do you push this team and how do you learn how to win, and he was like, at some point you got to go make it happen.
Yeah. I think the other frustrating thing is it's 3 losses now at home. Yeah. I think that has been a little bit frustrating. And then those teams that they've lost to, we probably thought those were going to be wins at the start of the year.
They had to be, I think.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting this week, turning the page here to Kansas City. I do think Thursday night, there's some randomness that comes with a Thursday night game. But it is going to be interesting to just sort of see if, hey, is this just have these games been close because these other teams aren't, considered to be at the top of the conference here, or, we're going to find out on Thursday night, because you talk about a defensive game plan against the Jets trying to make Zach Wilson throw the ball. When you look at this Chiefs team, there really is no, let's try to make them do this. It's all bad, so you kind of just got to make plays against this Chiefs team.
I think you have to stop the run.
Yeah.
I mean, and even if you're saying, hey, we're going to man up outside and play, we're going to just take our chances on the back end. I think there just has to be kind of a mental and psychological commitment to, we're going to stop the run and prove that we can do this. And if they dice us up down the field, at least and I don't know.
Stopping the run is a lot of it is mental and pride and the physical nature of it, and just sort of saying, no, we're not giving this up.
The stretch right now is the most rushing yards in the history of the franchise over 3 games. And it's, I think, the third most in NFL history. I mean, it's just been, and obviously it's skewed by giving up, 350 in Miami. But it's still over 200 the last 2 games is not good enough. They're going to have to, there's no good answer. And I think even if at some point this team has to, and I thought, and I still think at some point that Sean Payton's history and his coaching ability, that this team will learn to stack wins. But part of the issue the last few years, Phil, has been that even when you get a big win, the inability to follow it up with another win. Yeah. I think back to 2021, the Broncos go to Dallas, get a huge victory. Yeah. And you've got a chance with a struggling Eagles team at home to get a win and go into the bye and feel really good about yourself, and you lose a football game. Yeah. Or, was that 2021? Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was
that's
after
when they
the,
started
after the
well,
four-game losing streak. I mean, that's
Yeah.
another example. You win 3, can you keep it going or
Yeah.
stop the bleeding? You lose
Couldn't
4 in a
do it
row.
that year.
And so that's part of what this team needs to learn how to do as well is how do you stack wins? How do you continue success? How do you find a taste of victory and then get so addicted to it that you don't let it go and you do what it takes to keep finding that.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. Listen, everybody's got to find a way to improve to make this better. Phil, one guy I wanted to mention was Marvin Mims.
Oh, yeah.
He had a tough game.
Yeah, Sean said they're going to grind through this with him.
Yeah, and that I found interesting because Sean clearly has a lot of belief in this guy for good reason. He's shown the ability to make plays.
Yeah.
And he basically said, we don't want him to lose his stinger.
Yep.
He's got to stay aggressive. He makes too many plays, but he's got to work through this, and it'll be a good test for Marvin, I think, of, he's either got 2 or 3 turnovers in the last 2 weeks, depending on who you want to credit for that. I think the game book gave it to Samaje Perine for the fumble. But,
Yeah.
Marvin could have
made that catch.
made the play
going across them.
So how you depend to look on it, but I'll be interested to see how he responds. He did a really good job in Chicago. They need him.
Yeah, because in Chicago, the kickoff goes off him.
Yep.
And then later in the game, he ends up making a huge play, setting up the game-winning field goal.
And he had a punt return too after that.
Exactly.
It
set up some stuff. Yeah. So there you saw him bounce back. Yesterday against the Jets, not so much. It did seem like he was a little bit rattled after the confidence.
Apprehensive. Yeah. Let a kind of one went out of bounds that I think would have set up the safety there, and then had another one that was kind of near midfield that he just let kind of settle down.
Yeah.
Offensively, we didn't see I don't know that he had a target down the field.
No. I think he had one catch for 4 yards.
And again, some of that was what the defense was doing in terms of taking things away over the top. But
yeah, that was interesting because I think that you can approach it one of two ways. Like either you're like, that was a mistake by a rookie, he's done. Like you just sit him and just say, hey, let him think about this and we'll come back next week. That's one approach that maybe some coaches would go with. But Sean clearly has a lot of confidence in him, and his instincts told him, like, no, I need to show him that we've got this confidence in him, we believe in him, and also that the Broncos need him, like, because, they could have used a spark, and who knows, Mims, is certainly capable of taking one to the house, crib call again. That's what I call it, But he's capable of that. And the Broncos could have used that. So, you show him the confidence that you have and say, hey, chin up, let's get him next time. So
yeah, and he's made plays. I think he's earned that right that he gets to stay out there and show that he can respond. It sounds like he'll get that again on Thursday in Kansas City. I mean, the Broncos have not had another guy make as many plays as him, with the exception of maybe Jaleel McLaughlin. And so you've got to
two rookies have been.
You've got to keep him involved.
Those two guys have really been the big playmakers for the Broncos on the offensive side of the ball this year.
Yeah, I mean, Cortland has obviously made some plays in the red zone.
Made some nice catches for touchdowns.
But that, it hasn't been the same kind of deep play threat. And certainly we'll talk more about the Kansas City game later this week, Phil. But for the Broncos to have a chance to win, I think Marvin's got to make, he's got to have a big play down the field.
Yeah.
Or Jaleel has to have a big run. Like one of those guys has to make something happen. Where the Broncos get some explosive plays, and then they've got to find a way when you don't get those. Okay, well, how do you either grind some clock off? And because listen, even if the Broncos didn't score on all those drives in the third quarter,
get your defense some rest
downs.
Yeah,
chew some time off the clock.
Yes.
Let them rest up a little bit. Those things would have helped.
Yes, a first down can sometimes just be enough to
settle you down.
Yeah, exactly, and like. The momentum doesn't just start snowballing on you.
Right.
So, just even a first down. It's interesting. Sometimes, I feel like maybe other teams could use a guy like Mims where he's enough of a decoy or a threat that he could even help set up the run too. You see Tyreek Hill do that, or like the Chiefs with Kelsey. Sometimes you're just so afraid of them and their big play potential that defenses will just, even by their presence, play a little bit off, and then that could even help set up the run. So Mims is a big part of that. That he can be that kind of a player for the Broncos.
Yeah, and I wonder, is run blocking a part of it? I think you
down the field. You mean?
Well, even just kind of like if it's a short.
Run.
I know you're talking about kind of running him off and all that, but I think Mims has to continue to show that that's part of his game in order to get out there more. And you probably don't want to put too much on a rookie too soon, but listen, if the Broncos are going to turn this thing around, I think he's going to be a big part of it. And so I like the confidence. If you're Sean Payton, I think there's plenty of guys that this morning maybe you hammer a little bit and say, hey, this has got to be better. We got to be better here. This can't happen. Marvin Mims is a guy I think that needs a little boost.
Yeah.
This morning.
I thought that was interesting, just asking Sean, like, hey, considering the team is 1-4, like, how do you go through this with, trying to coach this team up? And he was like, look, guys got to dig deep. And he's like, and I got to trust my instincts that, like, look, I know how to guide this team. And that's part of the thing with having a coach like Sean that's been in the league for so long. He's got those instincts on, like, what his team needs. So I think you have to trust that he knows how to press the right buttons with this team. Because, we've talked about this certainly a lot here, that it's good to get back on the field quickly. A Thursday night game after a loss is not the worst thing. It's just unfortunate for the Broncos that it happens to be in Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, and again, we'll talk more about it, but a win this week could do a lot just in terms of, again, I don't pretend that means you're going to go on a crazy run.
No, but it could just give you a boost that's like, hey, okay, we know what we're capable of.
Right. And hey, we've been working hard. We've been grinding. Things haven't gone our way. And, Sean talked about the focus has to be on us this week. Internal. It can't be on the streak. It has to be on just us being better. But there's no question that if you were to find a way to go out and win, it would mean something to the guys in this locker room, and that they could use that, I think, as, hey, we can beat some of these teams, because there probably is, you mentioned, hey, the Raiders, the Commanders, the Jets are not among the league's best teams. I think they've each won one game outside of against the Broncos.
Exactly.
They've got 3 combined wins, I believe, that are not against Denver. And then you go to Miami and what happens there happens. So if you're the Broncos, you might be wondering, hey, are we, we're struggling against some of these teams. Are we even in a position where we can compete against some other teams in this league? And they're going to see some of those teams coming very soon. There. The Chiefs twice in 3 weeks. The Bills are on the schedule. You got the Chargers twice. I mean, you're going to be tested here.
And these players in this locker room, I mean, they're human beings. You know what I mean? They hear the noise. They're people. And they put on a uniform and they go to work, just like anybody else. I put on this quarter zip and I say it's time to work.
Quarter zip companion.
Exactly. But I do think that at this point, for them, it becomes a little bit more difficult to block out the noise. You know what I mean? And there's certainly a lot of stuff swirling around this team and what the future looks like for this season and what the plans are long term and all this kind of stuff. It's only human nature to be like, oh gosh. Where do I stand? What do they think? And then also at the same time, not get too down about the state of where things are, especially considering the goals and the hopes and dreams. I say H's and D's.
Yep.
Hopes and dreams for this team at the beginning of the year to start this way, and be in this spot already with so much of the season still ahead. Eric, it is going to take a lot for this coaching staff to keep them locked in, keep them focused on the task at hand, and block out all that other stuff.
Yeah, and I think guys are learning, and fans certainly. It's a process, right? And it's going to take some time. And I think that the frustrating part is that this team doesn't look totally hapless and incapable of doing anything and incapable of winning football games, and has shown at times good resilience. It just hasn't resulted in wins, and that's the important thing in this game, is that it does result in wins. And so,
that happened to me earlier this year. I tweeted in the first half, I was like, look how good this team is. And somebody commented and said, what was it, that aged like hot milk? Yeah, which I was like, is that good or bad?
I think it's bad.
I enjoy some hot milk sometimes.
Ooh.
Maybe you put a little
cafe
cocoa
au lait?
powder.
Maybe a cafe au lait?
Maybe you put a little some espresso in there. Boom.
Oh.
Latte.
Wow.
I mean, hot milk is nice.
But it ages. Does it age nicely or no?
I don't know about that.
That's maybe a good question. Maybe you leave a
Maybe.
gallon of milk in the sun all day. Would you drink it or no? Maybe it gets a little chunky.
Do you think that's what he was talking about?
It gets a little chunky.
Maybe some cottage cheese situation. Is that what we're talking about?
Gross. I don't like that.
But yeah, I mean that is the thing about this team is that the flashes have been. We've seen enough of the flashes that you're like it's there. It's just how do you
Like at this time last year, this team had more wins, obviously, right?
Yeah,
But there weren't.
it didn't feel you didn't feel that good about it.
No, like there was less. Yeah, you just didn't see the same sort of things.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could tell, like when some of the things are happening out there, especially on the offensive side of the ball, in particular.
Kind of a different story.
Yeah, but on the offensive side of the ball, you do see enough where you're like, oh, this guy was wide open. That was a thing that they tried to do and it worked. You know what I mean?
That's always
like
good when you try to do something and then
that
you
wasn't
do
just
it. That's good.
Well, it wasn't just luck. You know,
Yeah.
like they schemed open one of those nice easy plays.
Sustained drives.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things. I mean,
You
really,
see
before
it.
yesterday, the 3 and outs had not necessarily been a huge issue. They were at least moving the
Yeah.
ball a little bit.
Or like the screen, they've seen like they've worked a lot on that, and you know some of those have hit now.
The running
Or
back
like
screen,
a little,
the wide receiver screen still not clicking.
there. But like those little pitch outs to Jaleel, like
Yep.
those are nice. You know, so you see things like that you're like, oh, this is going to be a part of this offense, and like this works. You know, when it's set up like this. So, but then again, on the flip side of that, you see them come out in the third quarter, and you're just like, what happened?
What happened? Yeah.
Like you've said, Eric, they need some of that Bugs Bunny secret sauce.
It's possible. And, you know, Sean Payton talked last week before this game, hey, do you script the start of the second half?
Yeah.
I don't know. He kind of said it was hard to do that given the time limits of halftime. But
Peyton Manning's talked about that too on the old Manning cast.
Halftime adjustments.
He was like, "That's not a thing."
Yeah.
He was like, "You know, maybe you get a breather. You use a restroom and it's back out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, "That's not halftime adjustments aren't a thing."
But for whatever reason, then they've kind of clicked again and late in the fourth quarter. And when they go like that, and granted, teams are trying not to give up the big play, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just they've got to figure it out, Phil. And I think we talked about buying in and belief and all that at the beginning of the year. Certainly, some of these things would be easier to work through if you were 2-3 or 3-2 right now, and maybe you still don't make the playoffs in the long run. But you know, having at least being in the conversation enough or being hanging around would make this, I think, easier to bear. And at this point, you're just hoping. And again, long season, but at this point, I think you're hoping, hey, can we get better? Can we at some point string some wins together that gives you a reason to be excited going into the next season? But it's hard to have that conversation just 5 weeks into the year about, hey, how do we build for the future? And maybe they go on some crazy run and turn things around. But for right now, I think you've got to focus on just improvement, fixing things in defensively, getting better in the run game, and just, hey, can we hold them to 150 yards rushing instead of 200? Incremental growth. But I mean, it's kind of where you're at.
That's where you're at. Don't worry about bigger picture stuff. Right. Just on the
offensively, can we come out of halftime and score on the first drive?
Yeah.
Or can we score some points in the third quarter? That's going to be what the focus has to be, and maybe that helps you get to the point where you start winning some of these football games and you feel better about where you are, and we can at that point talk about, hey, this team's got some potential and has shown real growth here. And it is a week-to-week league, right? Where
last week you're feeling better. You come from behind, you're rallying, like maybe that was a turning point.
At halftime of this week, you're like, man, I walked by Hall of Famer Steve Atwater.
The Hoff?
He wasn't wearing his gold jacket, but he was wearing a nice tie.
Maybe just the Hall of Fame ring on.
Yeah. He likes the 33 ring.
He does like that one. Yeah.
I don't ever see him wear the 32.
Back. Well, when you have two Horsies on there with the two Lombardis.
Yeah, better.
It's nicer.
Yeah. I heard he was wearing the replica one that they gave out.
Oh, yeah.
He put the real one away. He said, I like this replica.
Nice. Yeah. Safer to wear that around.
That's true. Yeah. Has real diamonds.
Yeah.
I walked by Steve Atwater and I said, Steve, this feels like a game where if the Broncos don't beat themselves, they'll win this football game. And at halftime, that's exactly what it felt like. And then in the second half, they beat themselves, I think.
Yeah.
But also they stopped, like the style of play and the things
changed.
they were doing just completely went away. And so that's got to be the focus against a really good Chiefs team is, hey, can we just play, even if it's not good enough to win, and I hope that it is, that's a really hard place to go play, but can we at least maintain the same standard of play for 4 quarters?
Yeah. And I should say, Eric, maybe perhaps the moon and the stars, and there's an eclipse this week. I think it's on Thursday. Yeah. Things could be aligning, Eric, for the Broncos here, just because I will say the last time the Broncos won against the Chiefs, Thursday Night Football in Arrowhead.
That's true. The Broncos, of course, have played in Arrowhead on Thursday Night Football since then.
Yeah, but I'm talking about something a little bit different.
You're talking
about this one.
Yeah, that's true.
And the eclipse.
The eclipse, yeah. Taylor Swift.
The pull of the earth, and just everything could be a little bit different afterward.
True. The quarter zip companion, we didn't talk about that. That's important.
Yep. And the Taylor Swift thing, don't minimize that.
No, really wouldn't.
Yeah. It's a factor. It's a factor.
It's something.
So Thursday Night Football, I believe that was a week 2 game. So
it was what
I would consider an early season game. This is sort of like that too. So
well, and if you divide 6 by 3, which is the number of home losses the Broncos have, it's 2.
2. And then this game, of course, is on the road. So if you think about all of those things, it could be good for the Broncos.
What's interesting, Phil, is that last year, for as many struggles as the Broncos had, they actually played the Chiefs really well.
They did.
And then dating back to Vic Fangio's last game, the Broncos led late in that game with the ball in Chiefs territory, and had they been able to kick a field goal, probably end the streak there. And then
craziness.
And kind of just things that tend to
Chiefs
happen.
Things.
Yeah. Well, not just Chiefs things. I mean, the Eagles things, Cowboys.
Yeah, that's true.
Or Raiders things. Just
there was a period there where turnovers just got returned for touchdowns nonstop.
No matter what.
Yeah.
It was going to go for a touchdown.
There was a period there.
It was
who on the team has been around for all of these?
Nobody.
Justin Simmons has been.
Well, he wasn't here for the 1 in 15.
For 15. Oh, so he's just had the 14. Yeah.
Better.
That is better. I
don't think anybody has been here for all 15.
Nobody yet. Yeah, you're right.
Brandon McManus
was
here for all 15, but he is no longer.
He's no longer here.
Yeah. You've been here for all 15?
I have been. Yeah.
I've only been here for 14.
Prior to that, the Broncos have won all of them against the Chiefs for me.
Yeah. I, of course, have never seen a win by the Broncos over the Chiefs.
Yeah. But I believe Peyton Manning, I wish Ben Swanson was here. We should mention that he is not here.
Yeah, where did he go?
I'm not sure.
He's already in. I heard he was driving to Kansas City.
He wanted barbecue or something, and he had to go out there, and something
happened.
Something happened.
I don't know what it was, but something.
He wanted to check out that train museum, I think, that they have there.
And the meat.
Yeah, and then also some barbecue. Yeah.
Oh, the train.
The train museum.
I heard about that.
Yeah. He wanted
heard
to
it's a
check
good one.
Out. Yeah. I believe Peyton Manning only lost one time in his career, and it was that final one.
To the Chiefs. Undefeated in Indianapolis, or are you not counting that?
No, his whole career. Yeah. I believe that is a fact.
I think
or
he
maybe
might have had
one
I think he might have had a playoff loss to the Chiefs at one point, but
is that true?
I could be wrong.
Well, I have to look this up, and we'll it's sort of like it's like a teaser for the Thursday. It's like a teaser for Thursday.
Things are going.
Getting a little excited.
Things are getting crazy over here.
So eclipse. I'm telling you, the shift is the axis, not access. Axis.
The axis. There's no change.
I'm talking about the axis.
Is changing. Yeah.
The axis. It could change. Yeah. Maybe just by a decimal, little point there.
Decibel?
But it could be a
Decimal.
No. Yeah. What do you think about that? The loudest stadium stuff.
Arrowhead.
Everybody's always trying to set the
Everybody's trying to do it.
decibel. I sort of feel like you could fudge that a little, mean like, oh, now we've got the loudest one.
Yeah, hard to. Who's really counting that?
Once it's loud,
It's loud.
it's loud, and then nothing else really matters. It's just too loud to communicate.
Yeah.
But of course, when you go to Arrowhead, there's signs
It's
everywhere.
loud.
They're like, this
Too
is
loud.
this is the loudest
once
stadium in the
told-
NFL. I'm like,
John Elway once told them to be quieter.
well, that was a rule, Eric.
I'm not criticizing
that was a
him.
rule in the NFL that you could do that. So why not do it?
I'm not.
But the Chiefs fans, they like to bust that clip out all the time. I'm like, well, that's a rule that was in place. You know what I mean? You're getting me fired up here.
Struck a nerve
Yeah,
here.
that strikes a nerve because I hate when I see that clip. They of course think it's really funny, but it hits a nerve on me. It sort of sets me off a little.
You've been holding it together really well. I just say one thing about
that just drives me nuts.
I wasn't even criticizing. I was just saying that he did it.
He did do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It is a good clip.
That is a good clip. Yeah, I suppose if the shoe was on the other foot, I would always be using that.
Yeah.
Who would it be? Elvis Gerbach telling the Broncos to be quiet? Come on.
Probably Patrick Mahomes, right?
I wonder how the Chiefs feel about taking that L at home in the playoffs.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, maybe the Hoff, he should just wear that ring for that purpose.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Neil Smith.
Yeah. Neil Smith, one of the most beloved Kansas City Chiefs of all time. Late in his career, he was like, I guess it's time for me to win a Super Bowl. So he just came to Denver.
Into Denver.
Had to leave
Yeah.
the Super Bowl. So
Did too.
I will say that this is a what have you done for me lately type of a league. So the Chiefs have that on their side, but
They do.
we do have the Neil Smith, right?
Perfect.
I don't recall any beloved Broncos putting on the red to go try and win. You know what I mean? I just don't.
Melvin Gordon not fall in that category?
That doesn't fall in that.
Okay,
category.
sorry. I was just
don't think
checking.
so. I don't think so.
He
I
did.
don't think he played in.
He did not play.
He did not play.
No.
Yeah, so
That's okay. I like
a little
Mel.
bit different.
I like Mel.
Neil Smith came in here. I do like Mel too. I'm not.
I'm not saying you didn't.
You're just saying you do.
I'm just, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
If one could be true without the other being,
Right.
yeah. You're just saying a fact. You just said
I'm
a
just
fact.
saying a fact.
Yeah, you just said a fact.
Almost a little suspicious. So you're like, so do I.
I just don't want people being like,
you don't-
oh, he's throwing
Phil
shade.
doesn't.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
no,
I'm not throwing any shade.
We like Mel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the visor that Mel wore was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But I digress.
But he's not Neil Smith.
Neil Smith came here and made some plays for this team,
Yes.
and he was a valued member helping this team win the Super Bowl, which is big.
So well, hopefully the Broncos can wash this taste out of their mouth and move on no matter who it's against. I know it's going to be a tough one this week. It's going to be a challenge. I think the Broncos are double-digit underdogs.
If they can't stop the run, it's going to be a long day. So that's that. It
the
starts with a little bit of
game's at
pride.
night, so
It's going to be a long night.
yeah. Could
Yeah.
be a long day and then long night.
Of course, the next day is Friday the 13th, Eric. So if you know what I mean, like it's just
There are a lot of things happening here.
A lot of things are happening this week.
Yeah,
Let's just say
maybe
that.
we dive into them more on Thursday. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think this
It's going
week
to be sort of an interesting week.
programming note.
Yeah.
I think we'll post a podcast either Wednesday evening or
I
Thursday
think so.
morning. So
yeah. One of those two.
one of those will happen. Probably Thursday morning.
50-50
Thursday
really,
morning.
if you
It'll
think
either
about
be
what it-
posted or not.
Yeah, exactly. So just keep looking. Yeah.
Refresh.
It is going to be a
Refresh.
sort of a strange week just with the Thursday. You got a quick turnaround. Same for us.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be busy.
I mean, still probably sore, feeling it from this Jets game, but we got to power through and get ready for another podcast.
Our vocal cords, they could use a rest, but there's no rest for the weary.
No, it's all about recovery this week.
Yep.
Getting ready. A
your
lot of
mentals
tea,
right.
a lot of honey, a lot of just sort of taking care of
Quarter
your
zips.
body.
Got to wash the quarter. Got to launder the quarter zips.
You got to launder it. Yeah.
Yep.
How's your laundry machine working?
Oh, good. It's back.
Yeah, it's back.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's nice. So.
I will give one quick shout. I know we don't normally do shout outs on.
Oh, yeah, you
on
got one,
Monday,
though.
but
You got one.
Brandon Walker,
From Iowa.
Brandon from Iowa.
Did he say hello to you? He came out?
Oh, I don't think so.
I think he said he was going to be. Maybe this week he's going to Kansas City. That's what it was.
Oh, got it.
I think.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the best.
My story is that the Jets posted that meme that we won't talk about.
I don't know what you're talking. I really don't know.
But Brandon from Iowa was in the comments, and he was like, "Enjoy your second win."
Oh,
because he was basically like, "You guys still are terrible."
Oh, yeah.
So I think he probably got lit up, but I appreciate him trying to defend his team.
Yeah, hard to come to the defense on a tweet like that.
Yeah.
But I really don't even know what you're talking about. So I don't really know. But yeah, thank you, Brandon. I think he is coming to this. I think he's coming to the Kansas City.
Coming to Denver for the Kansas City game, or is he coming to this Kansas City game?
Maybe he could weigh in.
Okay.
Yeah, but obviously, shout out to Brandon. Yeah, staying strong. It's putting up the good fight. Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Maybe Ben Swanson will be back. Maybe he won't be.
We'll see.
We don't know. Until Thursday or maybe Wednesday afternoon. That is going to do it for us. For Eric Law, I am Phil Milani. You've been listening to The Neutral Zone.